Hello, my name is Alexandra Bandian. I am an actress, visual artist, singer, and dancer, and I've been vegan since 2015. It's a pleasure for me to introduce you to this video by Festival Vegan de Montréal 2020 presented by Nafsika. The following video features Rose Gergely, and she will be talking about the animals of the Refuge RR. Rose Gergely was born and raised in Montreal, Quebec, and has loved animals since a young age. At the age of 11, she became aware of the horrific cruelty of the Canadian seal hunt and became active in raising awareness about it. It was also at this time that she stopped eating animals and adopted a vegetarian diet. At age 13, she bought her own horse, who was boarded in a riding facility, but she soon discovered that many people had no love or respect for their horses and only used them for sport and profit, eventually discarding them, selling them, or sending them to slaughter. She embraced veganism when she was 18 years old, and as her awareness of animal cruelty grew, so did her passion and drive to help them. Rose worked as a veterinary technician and purchased her own property in Ormstown, Quebec, to rescue, rehabilitate, and provide a permanent home for dozens of abused and neglected dogs, cats, and rabbits. In 1988, Rose rescued her first farm animal, a baby lamb, named Snowy, who needed to be bottle-fed. Snowy paved the way for the founding of Refuge RR in 1990, when it became a registered charity. Calls started to come in about old horses that people no longer wanted. They didn't trust anyone else except her because they knew her love for animals was genuine. Soon the word spread, and Rose started getting many calls about different animals that needed help, like horses from racetracks who were starving and freezing to death, and abandoned and abused animals of all kinds. Over the past 29 years, Rose has rescued thousands of animals ranging from domestic to equine, farm, and wild animals. She is always finding loving homes to place abandoned animals and carefully chooses the right families and sanctuaries that will take the best care of them. Refuge RR is Canada's biggest animal sanctuary and is now home to over 250 animals. It is currently located in Alexandria, in Ontario, where Rose lives with her two children, Matt and Shelby, who help her with her daily work. Refuge RR receives no help from the government and relies entirely on donations to cover the tremendous costs. Rose is considered a hero by many and is highly respected for dedicating her life to saving animals. She wholeheartedly believes that all lives matter and that every life is precious and should be saved. Her level of compassion and love for animals is unsurmountable. If you enjoy the videos of Le Festival Vegan de Montréal 2020, you can make a voluntary contribution in the form of a donation via our website festivalvegandemontreal.com. The festival is a non-profit organization that works with volunteers, and the content you will watch is free thanks to their involvement and our sponsors. Enjoy the video and have a great day.
So we rescued her at 4 days old because she was sick when she was born, and the farmer didn't want to put any money into her, so he was either going to leave her in the forest to be eaten by coyotes or leave her just under a tree to die. So at 4 days old, we had to give her a plasma transfusion. She was treated for weeks with different antibiotics, and finally she pulled through, and she's been here for 17 years. So. is a fallow deer. She came from a facility that they used to have deer for exotic meats or, fancy restaurants. The man who had her decided that he was going to put her on Kijiji, and he had over 1,500 hunters want to shoot her. So finally someone contacted us and we were able to trap her and bring her here to freedom. So. We received a call for a horse that was frozen to the ground. It was -40 for about 30 days, and actually was starved and frozen to the ground. So we covered her with a bunch of blankets. We heated her up with hair dryers, and she only was able to stand up for a few minutes and would fall back down. We slept in the barn with her every day for 2 weeks, alternating with me and my son. And every day we would try to get her up a little bit, having new people come in to hoist her up with straps. She was able to stand up for the first time after 2 weeks, and she was able to walk. And after that, she just progressed until today, which is 7 years later. Whistler was saved at 4 hours old. He's part of the dairy industry, and he's considered just a byproduct. He was rushed to the veterinary hospital, and he spent 2 weeks in the hospital. He had a plasma transfusion. He had constant IV fluids, antibiotic fluids, and after 2 weeks, he was able to have enough immunity to save his life. And now he's going to live here for his life. So. Zola was a bottle-fed baby, and at a year old, she was abandoned at an auction. From the auction, she was sold to a riding school. At the riding school, because she was a bottle-fed baby, she had no idea how to act like a horse, so they didn't want her at the riding school. So they sent her back to the auction. Then she was bought by an individual who decided not to feed her, and she was about 350 pounds underweight. She was starved. We brought her home, and she was just petrified of all the horses. It took us about 6 months to just get her used to being around another horse, and she would hide on the corner of our driveway to stay away from them. Finally, after about a year, she was able to integrate and make a few friends, and now she's understanding that horse life is not so bad, that she's enjoying being in a herd, and they're her friends. They're not scary, and she's gained all her weight back. Ivy was born on a dairy farm, and when she was born, her leg was broken. The farmer left her leg dangling there for 2 months rotting, so it basically ate away the joint and her bone. Once we rescued her, we brought her to the hospital, and the vets found it really, really hard. There was such a bad infection in the bone that it took almost 2 years of probably about 15 different procedures, and finally the bone was fused and it grew back and it healed. So this little Gabby was brought to us after he was found at a slaughterhouse. He came from a transport truck. They found him underneath the truck while all the other hens and roosters were being brought into a meat slaughterhouse, and he was the only survivor. So he's doing really well, he's really happy, and he's got lots of friends, and he would be dead right now if he wasn't lucky enough to fall off the truck. Beezer was a racehorse, and he broke his leg on the racetrack during a race. Instead of fixing his leg, the owners left him just with his broken leg in the field for about a year, just on no treatment, no painkillers, no relief, no nothing. We tried to heal it with different vets. We had x-rays done, but they discovered that the damage was there was too much damage in his leg. We couldn't repair it, but he had such a strong will to live, and it doesn't really bother him as he has 3 other legs that are holding him really well. So, but it did, at the time, must have cost him massive amounts of pain, because he broke his first fetlock joint, and all the ligaments and everything were torn with it. So, and as time goes on, he's going to have arthritis and pain, but we'll keep on giving him pain relief and stuff. Abby was used as a dairy cow. She was locked inside a barn for 6 years of her life, stood on concrete every day. She had 6 babies, and each and every baby was taken away from her. We got a call from an insider at the dairy farm saying that she had a red stripe on her back and she was being shipped to slaughter the next day, and would we help her escape slaughter. So we agreed. And we took Abby in right away, and Abby's now 13 years old, and she was so excited the day that she saw, the outside world and not standing on cement. And, we actually had to give her medication to get rid of her milk because she had been milked every day of her life. We also were able to save her mother, who was a totally blind cow, and her mother's name was Sweetie, and she was rescued also from the farm, and she was able to be shipped over to the New York Farm Sanctuary to be a companion for another blind cow, and she lived there for 3 years until she passed away. This is Leah and Polly. Leah is 35 years old, and she's blind in one eye and missing another eye. Her daughter is Polly, and she was starved and pregnant, and Polly was 1 year old, and she was so malnourished that her hips were not in her sockets of her legs, so she couldn't walk. They were actually about half a foot dangling out of her body. Called vets all around the world to try to see if we could repair it, and many of them were suggesting surgery, and don't forget, she was starved. She was so malnourished, she was weak, she couldn't stand up, and we decided to give her a chance, instead of surgery, to use supplements. So as her mother started eating and feeling better, and she was pregnant at the time, she was growing, she was getting stronger, Polly's body was starting to repair with all the good nutrition. And then once the other baby was born, he was born fine, and he kept on kind of pushing at Polly. He's like, "Come on, Polly, walk with me." And Polly was like, "I can't," because her hips were not in her sockets. So this went on for about a month, and he was like, "Come on, Polly, I want you to play with me." And then finally, after 2 months, she felt strong enough that he's like, "Come on, Polly, play with me," and she started to walk. And then within 2 months after that, she was able to run, and in the 6 months, she was totally normal. And now she's fine. She's 13 years old now. Right now we have about 67 horses. The amount of money that it takes to feed them is incredible, because they eat about 28,000 pounds of hay weekly. Most of the horses that are here come from the slaughter industry. They were either coming from racetracks or defunct riding schools, where they were just shipping the animals off to slaughter because they either didn't want to take care of them or they were useless in their industry. So many of them, once they were rendered useless, they were shipping them off to their death to get the last amount of money for their meat. We did take in a lot that were starved, abused, and because of the hay crisis this year, there's no hay in the area, so they have to bring it from Alberta, and it costs about $200,000 to feed them for the winter.